Ladies and gentlemen, today I ask you a question. Why don't they teach this in every school? We send our children to school to learn how to read and write, to solve equations, to memorize dates in history. But when they leave those school doors, are they truly prepared for life? You see, my friends, education is a wonderful thing. Knowledge is powerful, but knowledge alone is not enough. A person can have all the degrees, all the intelligence, all the success the world can offer and still be lost. Because without wisdom, without truth, without a foundation built on something greater than ourselves, knowledge is like a ship without a compass, drifting, lost, without direction. Well, why don't they teach children about character? Why don't they teach about the power of honesty, the strength of kindness, the importance of standing firm in what is right, even when the world tells them otherwise? We have schools filled with bright young minds, but are we giving them what they truly need? Are we teaching them that life is not just about money or fame or success, but about serving, about loving, about standing for what is good and true? A house built on sand may stand for a while, but when the storms come, it will fall, and the storms of life will come. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You've faced them, you've seen them, and what gets a person through those storms is not the kind of math they learned in high school, but the strength of their heart, the foundation of their faith, the wisdom to walk the right path. It's time we stop only filling minds with information and start filling hearts with truth. Because a life well lived is not measured by what we know, but by who we become. The education of the soul matters more than just the mind, because a mind filled with knowledge, but a soul empty of wisdom is like a tree with many branches, but no roots. And we see it every day, don't we? People chasing success, chasing wealth, chasing knowledge, and yet they lie awake at night wondering why they still feel empty, why the achievements they worked so hard for do not bring them peace, why the world applauds them, but their hearts are weighed down by burdens they cannot name. And it is because the mind may know how to build a career, but only the soul knows how to build a life that matters. Only the soul understands the depth of love, the meaning of sacrifice, the purpose of existence. And without that foundation, we teach children how to solve equations, how to write essays, how to pass tests. But do we teach them how to handle failure, how to face suffering, how to hold on to hope when everything around them is falling apart? Because life will test them far beyond what any classroom ever could. Life will bring storms that no textbook can prepare them for. Life will demand a strength that does not come from intelligence alone, but from something deeper, something eternal, something that no diploma can grant. And yet we pour all our resources, all our time, all our energy into sharpening the mind while the soul withers away. And then we wonder why anxiety is rising, why depression is spreading. A person can memorize all the laws of science, can understand the complexities of economics, can master the art of technology, but if they do not know how to love, if they do not know how to forgive, if they do not know how to stand firm in the face of adversity, then what good is all that knowledge? What good is all that intelligence? What good is a world full of brilliant minds if those minds are lost, if those minds have no compass, no guiding light, no anchor to hold them steady when life shakes them to their core? Because sooner or later, life will shake them. Sooner or later, the illusions will fall. Sooner or later, the things they thought would satisfy them will leave them empty. And in that moment, it will not be their grades, not their degrees, not their career titles that will save them, but the strength of their soul. Look around and you will see people who have reached the top of their fields, people who have climbed the ladders of success, people who have achieved all that they were told to achieve, and yet they are lost, yet they are restless, yet they are searching for something more, because the mind alone cannot satisfy the hunger of the heart, the hunger of the soul, the hunger for meaning that no amount of knowledge can ever replace. And so they turn to distractions, they turn to the next thrill, the next accomplishment, the next validation from a world that only applauds success but does not nurture the soul. And in the quiet of the night, when the noise fades, when the applause dies down, when the achievements are no longer enough, they find themselves face to face with the one thing they neglected, the one thing they ignored, the one thing they never learned in school, the state of their soul. And yet we continue to push a system that fills the brain but starves the heart. We continue to measure worth by intelligence but not by integrity. We continue to pour resources into academic success while neglecting the very thing that gives life its true meaning. And then we wonder why people are lost, why they seek happiness in places that can never give it to them. Because happiness, true happiness, does not come from how much we know, but from how deeply we understand what matters most. And that understanding comes not from a sharp mind, but from a wise soul. Not from a high IQ, but from a heart that has been shaped by truth, by love, by purpose. And unless we start teaching this, unless we start prioritizing this, unless we start building an education that feeds both the mind and the soul, we will continue to raise generations that are successful but broken, accomplished but lost, intelligent but unable to find the peace they so desperately crave. Because the greatest lessons in life are not found in textbooks. The greatest wisdom does not come from a professor's lecture. The greatest truths cannot be learned in a classroom alone. They are learned in the way we live, in the choices we make, in the moments when we must decide between what is easy and what is right. And yet, how many schools teach this? How many institutions train young people not just for jobs but for life, not just for financial success but for true fulfillment, not just for intelligence but for wisdom that will carry them through the darkest nights and the hardest battles? Because intelligence can take you far, but only wisdom will keep you standing when the ground beneath you shakes. Only wisdom will remind you who you are when the world tries to change you. And this is why the education of the soul matters more than just the mind. Because at the end of our lives, it will not be our intelligence that defines us. It will not be the degrees on our walls, the titles on our resumes, the knowledge we accumulated over the years, but the kind of people we became, the kind of love we gave, the kind of truth we stood for. And if we have trained only the mind but not the soul, then we have built a world that is brilliant but blind, a world that knows much but understands little, a world that moves fast but has lost its way. And it is time we wake up, time we see the truth, time we start teaching what truly matters. Because a well-trained mind may open doors, but only a well-nourished soul will walk through those doors with purpose, with peace, with the kind of wisdom that builds something that lasts beyond a lifetime. So let us not be a generation that raises thinkers without teaching them how to live. Let us not be a society that praises intelligence while ignoring the heart. Let us not invest in the temporary and forget the eternal, because when all is said and done, it is not the mind alone that will carry us through this life. It is the soul. It is the foundation we build. It is the truth we live by. And if we neglect that, if we do not teach that, if we do not prioritize that, then all the knowledge in the world will never be enough to save us from the emptiness of a life without meaning. A foundation built on truth lasts forever, because truth is not just an idea, not just a philosophy, not just a concept that changes with time, but it is the very rock upon which everything that endures must be built. For without truth nothing stands, nothing holds, nothing remains when the winds blow and the storms come. And yet we live in a world that often chooses convenience over truth, chooses comfort over conviction, chooses shifting sands over solid ground. And then we wonder why things fall apart, why relationships break, why institutions crumble, why lives that seem so strong suddenly collapse under the weight of trials they were never prepared for. Because when something is not built on truth, it is only a matter of time before it falls, only a matter of time before the cracks begin to show. And truth, real truth, does not bend to opinions, does not shift with culture, does not break under pressure, because truth is not a human invention, not a product of society, not a trend that comes and goes, but something deeper, something eternal, something that existed before us and will exist long after us, something that does not change based on how we feel or what we want, because truth is truth, whether we accept it or reject it, whether we recognize it or ignore it, whether we build our lives upon it or try to replace it with something easier. And yet, so many today have been told that truth is whatever they make it, that truth is whatever suits them, that truth is flexible, adaptable, controllable. But when the storms of life come, when the trials shake the ground beneath their feet, because the world is full of promises that do not last, full of temporary pleasures that do not satisfy, full of paths that seem right in the moment but lead only to destruction. And how many have followed those paths? How many have built their lives on the promises of wealth, of fame, of power, of success, only to find themselves empty, only to find themselves searching for something more, only to realize that everything they worked for, everything they relied on, everything they thought would fulfill them was nothing more than an illusion, a mirage in the desert, a structure without a foundation. And yet, even then, even in the moment when everything falls apart, there is still hope. There is still a way back. There is still a chance to rebuild, because truth is not just a foundation for the beginning, it is the foundation for restoration. Why a foundation built on truth lasts forever, because no matter how the world shifts, no matter how opinions change, no matter how many new philosophies arise, truth remains the same, remains steady, remains unshaken, and those who build upon it will not be moved. Those who stand upon it will not fall. Those who cling to it will not be lost. And how many stories do we need to see? How many lives do we need to witness? How many generations do we need to watch fall apart before we realize that when we build without truth, we are only setting ourselves up for collapse? Because history is filled with examples of great civilizations, of powerful leaders, of mighty empires that seemed unstoppable, seemed invincible, seemed eternal, and yet they crumbled, they fell, they disappeared into the dust of time, not because they lacked intelligence, not because they lacked knowledge, not because they lacked strength, but because they abandoned truth, because they built on the wrong foundation, because they thought they could redefine reality, reshape morality, recreate the world in their own image. And yet, the same principle remains. What is not built on truth will not last. What is not rooted in truth will not endure. But to build on truth is to build on something eternal, something unbreakable, something that cannot be destroyed by time, by trials, by the shifting tides of culture. Because truth is not a trend, not a phase, not a passing idea. It is the firm ground beneath the feet of those who will stand when all others fall. It is the unshakable rock beneath the lives of those who refuse to be swayed by deception. It is the one thing that gives meaning, that gives purpose, that gives a life not just success but significance. Because what is the point of gaining the whole world if in the end it all fades away? What is the point of building the tallest towers if they come crashing down? What is the point of achieving everything if what was achieved was built on a lie? Because when all is said and done, when our time on this earth is over, only what was built on truth will remain. Oh, building something? Everyone is laying bricks. Everyone is constructing a life, a future, a foundation for the days ahead. But the real question is, what are we building on? What is beneath our feet?